The terminal buzzed with the usual airport chaos, rolling suitcases, crying babies, announcements echoing overhead. Sheila Johnson, a 42-year-old black woman from Atlanta, clutched her ticket and tried to keep calm as she hurried toward Gate 17. Her flight to San Diego, her first real vacation in over a decade, was already boarding. Her hands trembled slightly, not from nerves, but from disbelief that she was finally doing something for herself. For 15 years, she'd worked back-to-back shifts as a nurse at a local clinic, putting her daughter through school and barely scraping enough for bills. But today? Today was for her. A gift she had saved up for. A moment of peace she so deeply earned. Final boarding call for Flight 672 to San Diego, the loudspeaker blared. She quickened her pace. Then she saw him. An elderly white man, probably in his late 80s, stood frozen near the escalator. He looked pale and confused, wobbling slightly, his cane dropped beside him. Dozens of travelers rushed by, annoyed and indifferent. A few glanced at him, then kept walking. Sheila stopped in her tracks. Her heart twisted. Something about his face, the fear, the helplessness, reminded her of her late grandfather. The voices in her head clashed. "Keep going, Sheila. You've waited too long for this trip. He needs help." What if that were someone you loved? She turned back. "Sir? Are you okay?" she asked softly, crouching beside him. He mumbled something unintelligible. His lips were dry. Sweat lined his forehead. "Let's get you a seat," she said gently, grabbing his cane and slowly helping him to a nearby bench. His hands trembled in hers. She offered her water bottle, then ran to get an airport attendant. 10 minutes later, medical staff arrived. The man nodded weakly at her, trying to mouth the words "thank you." She smiled back, brushing away a tear. She checked her watch. 12:07 p.m. Her flight had left at 12 o'clock. She blinked, then slowly sank onto the bench beside him. Her shoulders dropped as the weight of it hit her. No trip. No beach. No getaway from her exhausting life. But even then, in that moment of disappointment, she didn't feel regret. Just a strange, quiet peace. She looked at the old man as the medics wheeled him away. "You'll be okay now," she whispered. Nobody clapped. There were no cameras. Just a woman who made a choice, not because it would get her anything, but because it was the right thing to do. Sheila Johnson missed her flight that day. What she didn't know was that her life was about to take off in a way she never imagined. Sheila sat alone by the large glass window overlooking the tarmac, her small bag tucked at her feet. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the airport lounge, but the warmth couldn't reach the heaviness in her chest. She'd spoken with 3 different airline agents. All flights to San Diego were either full, delayed, or outrageously expensive. With no refund and no budget for a new ticket, she accepted the inevitable: she'd be spending the night in the airport. She sighed and leaned her head back against the wall, forcing a brave smile as she texted her daughter. "Missed my flight. Long story. Don't worry. I'm okay, red heart." But she wasn't okay. Not really. The exhaustion of working for years without a break, of always putting others first, had finally caught up with her. And just when she thought she'd carved out a moment for herself, it was gone. Still, she didn't regret helping the old man. She couldn't. She stared down at her shoes, worn and scuffed from years of hospital corridors. She felt invisible in a sea of travelers, just another face in the crowd. Then, a voice broke through. "Excuse me. Miss Johnson?" She looked up, startled. A sharply dressed young man, no older than 30, stood before her in a tailored suit. His demeanor was polite, but there was a weight behind his eyes, something sincere. "Yes," she replied, unsure how he knew her name. He smiled, crouching slightly to meet her eyes. "My name is James Wallace. My grandfather, he was the man you helped earlier today." Sheila blinked in surprise. Oh, is he all right? He's stable now, thanks to you, James nodded. I wanted to come personally to thank you. Sheila smiled softly. I didn't do anything special. Just made sure someone got the help they needed. James pulled a sleek card from his pocket and handed it to her. It was black with gold embossed lettering. Monarch Airlines, Executive Office. And handwritten beneath it. For the woman who reminded me what humanity looks like. Thank you. Henry B. Wallace. Sheila stared at the card, eyes widening. The Henry Wallace? The airline owner? James nodded, amused by her shock. He was traveling quietly today. Doesn't like the spotlight. But he noticed you, not just your actions, but your heart. She didn't know what to say. Her throat tightened with emotion. People walked past, James continued. But you didn't. And that meant something. To him. To all of us. He gently placed a small envelope on her lap. Consider this a small gesture of appreciation. We'll also be contacting you with a more formal thank you soon. As he turned to walk away, Sheila opened the envelope. Inside was a first-class boarding pass, not just to San Diego, but with no expiration date. A golden pass. Her hands trembled. In that moment, surrounded by strangers and stale airport air, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Seen. Valued. Loved. And it all started with a simple choice, to care. Later that evening, Sheila stood at the private check-in counter of Monarch Airlines, still unsure if this was real. She had barely slept on the airport bench, her mind overwhelmed by the strange kindness she'd received earlier. Clutching the black and gold envelope, she approached the agent as instructed. The woman at the counter looked up, eyes widening as she read the name. Miss Sheila Johnson, she asked warmly. Sheila nodded, unsure what to expect. Please follow me. She was escorted away from the crowd, through security with no wait, past the usual noise of the terminal, and into a quiet, glass-walled lounge overlooking the runway. Inside was everything she'd never experienced in all her years of travel: soft music, gourmet food, leather seats, and peaceful silence. A few minutes later, a private car rolled up beside a sleek Monarch Airlines jet, smaller than a commercial plane, but gleaming silver under the lights. Is this, for me? Sheila whispered, stunned. Before the attendant could answer, a familiar voice came from behind her. It's for us. She turned. It was Henry Wallace, dressed now in a casual cardigan and dress slacks, his cane neatly hooked on his arm. He looked much better, skin flushed with color, smile genuine. I never got to thank you properly, he said. Oh, sir, you don't need to. He raised a hand gently. I do. You see, I built an empire, Miss Johnson. Monarch serves millions. I've met presidents, celebrities, and billionaires. But in all that time, I've never met someone like you. You didn't stop to help me because of who I was. You didn't even know. Sheila blushed, unsure how to respond. You looked like you needed help. That's all. And that, he said, eyes gleaming, is everything. As the plane prepared to board, he handed her a sleek portfolio. Inside were 3 things. A lifetime travel pass, unlimited flights on Monarch Airlines, anywhere in the world. A donation certificate? $250,000 in her name to the hospital where she worked, for equipment and community outreach. An invitation to sit on Monarch's new humanitarian advisory board, helping shape travel programs for underserved communities. Sheila's eyes welled with tears. I don't know what to say. Henry smiled. Say yes. And keep being you. As they boarded the private jet, she looked around, plush leather seats, a small team of flight attendants already addressing her by name, warm towels, a glass of champagne. But more than luxury, she felt something deeper, recognition. Not for fame or wealth, but for kindness. The one thing she'd never asked to be noticed for. As the plane lifted into the clouds, Sheila whispered to herself, "This can't be real." But it was. And it was only the beginning. The story could have ended with a private jet and a thank you card. But fate had more in store for Sheila Johnson, far more than she ever dreamed. By the time she returned home to Atlanta, her phone was buzzing with messages. She hadn't checked social media in days, but a coworker had already sent her a link. Woman misses flight to help elderly stranger, learns he owns the airline. The headline had gone viral. Someone in the airport, likely a bystander with a smartphone or a security camera feed, had captured her moment of kindness. The clip showed Sheila kneeling beside the frail old man, shielding him from the rush of passers-by. The footage was quiet but powerful. No words, just action. It had already hit over 5 million views. Thousands of comments poured in. "This is what real heroes look like. Sheila Johnson, you're the reason I haven't given up on humanity. I hope she knows the world sees her now." Sheila was stunned. "I didn't do it for attention," she told a friend. But attention found her. Local news wanted interviews. Her hospital featured her in their newsletter. Monarch Airlines released an official statement announcing the Sheila Johnson Humanitarian Travel Initiative, which would offer free or discounted flights to medical workers, caretakers, and volunteers in underfunded communities, all inspired by one woman's simple act of compassion. Sheila's daughter, Maya, beamed with pride as they watched the announcement on television. "That's you, Mama," she whispered, hugging her tightly. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came a week later, when Sheila visited her former elementary school. The principal invited her to speak to the students during morning assembly. Dressed simply, holding nothing but a small notepad, Sheila stood before a sea of wide-eyed children. "I'm not rich," she began, her voice steady. "I'm not famous. I've never done anything that made the news, until last week. All I did was help someone who looked like they needed it." The gym was silent. "I didn't know he owned an airline. I didn't know the cameras were watching. And that's the point. You don't need a reward to be kind. You don't need to be seen to make a difference." She paused, eyes misty. "Sometimes, the biggest change in your life comes from doing the smallest thing for someone else." The room erupted in applause. That night, as she and Maya curled up on the couch, Sheila scrolled through a few final messages. One, from a stranger in Montana, read, "I'm flying for the first time next month because of your story. Not just because I can, but because I want to see the world with the same heart you have." She closed her phone and smiled. The flight she missed had led her to something far greater than a vacation. It had led her to her purpose.